Some eye-opening results this week across the country as 5 states held primary elections. One that is getting a lot of attention, an abortion measure in Kansas. Voters rejecting an amendment that would have said there was no right to an abortion in the state. Joining me now is Todd, moderator of NBC's Meet the Press. And Chuck, Georgia's a state with a very restrictive law on abortion. And while we don't have an amendment on the ballot in November, it is certainly going to be a big part of this election. And you have said in the past, Republicans are concerned about this. After what we saw in Kansas, are they even more worried now?
Those that worry about winning elections, yes. The folks I've talked to, they're very worried. I had one Republican pollster very frustrated with, he pointed out to me that the actual decision that overturned Roe, the state law that overturned Roe was actually for 15 weeks in Mississippi. Now, of course, Mississippi is going for a total ban. That isn't really what they wanted. The irony was, this pollster told me, 15 weeks was actually had a majority he didn't call it support, he called it tolerance, if you will. So I think that's where I think the right is frustrated, at least on the political strategist side of things, because instead of this being about making Democrats say, well, when should abortions end? It's now about, do you believe in any exceptions? Because we're seeing a lot of either legislators or some high-profile Republican candidates calling for total bans, no exceptions for even rape or incest. That horrendous story that went viral of the 10-year-old rape victim that couldn't get an abortion in her home state. So I do think you're going to see this become more dominant in the governor's race in particular, perhaps even more so than the Senate race.
And you're going to have Stacey Abrams on Meet the Press Sunday as she prepares for a rematch against Governor Brian Kemp. We can certainly expect her to talk about the abortion issue. As you prepare for that interview, what takeaway do you have about her campaign so far compared to 4 years ago? And isn't Governor Kemp in a stronger position than he was that time because of incumbency and a strong primary performance?
Yeah. Look, I think Governor Kemp is in a very strong position. I think, you're Stacey Abrams, you may be needing Herschel Walker to bring the ticket down a little bit. But look, but the problem is Senate races don't lead tickets. It's governor's races drive turnouts. And so, look, I think that's why you're going to see her pivot a lot more directly on the abortion issue, because I think she sees that as the biggest vulnerability for him with sort of center-right voters. Because you're right, I do think Kemp's decisive victory over Trump, and that's really what that was about, I think really sort of made him a Republican that the Atlanta suburban Republican can vote for. I think you're going to see a lot of split tickets in the suburbs of Atlanta. I think you're going to see a lot of Warnock-Kemp voters. When I say a lot, 4 or 5%, which is quite a bit these days of ticket splitters. But I think that is something that Stacey Abrams needs to figure out how to change that narrative, because I do think that Kemp got a big boost from defeating Trump. I think it redefined who he was as a politician to a significant chunk of voters that Stacey Abrams needs to win over.
Chuck, I want to switch gears now. Basketball star Brittney Griner sentenced to 9 years in a Russian prison. What do we think ultimately happens with her, as well as Paul Whelan, another U.S. citizen that's detained there?
I'm cautiously optimistic that actually the fact that the trial is over and the sentencing is done, we now get to the negotiating part. I mean, I think it is just a matter of when. I don't want to overhype it, but I do think it's a matter of when Paul Whelan and Brittney Griner come home, not if, and what it's going to take. There's every chance this deal gets sealed quicker than you think. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov are in the same country right now. They're in the same big multilateral meeting in Southeast Asia. Getting them meeting face-to-face is obviously step one in getting there. They haven't met face-to-face yet this weekend, but I sort of, ask me again next week. I think this is going to start start heating up the talks, and that this will eventually happen. I think it's just all about now how quickly.
All right, we'll have to watch that. Meet the Press with special guest Stacey Abrams airs Sunday at 10 on 11 Alive. Chuck, thank you.